Dear friends, glad to meet you all on Feygin Live. It is Saturday, August 6th, 2 minutes past 10 Kiev time, and we're starting a regular stream, day 164, with Olexiy Arestovych. Glad to see you, Olexiy. Pretty impressive merch on you today. I get a lot of notes saying, why are you not wearing your own stuff? Well, here it is. Me personally, I'm a shoemaker without shoes. Over 100,000 watching us live, over 23,000 clicked the like button. Big ask for those who are continuing to watch us out of stubbornness without subscribing. Please subscribe to both of our channels. If you're watching that in English, subscribe to the Privateer station and click that bell button. We're trying to give you a deeper view, deeper look into the situations unfolding. Alright, let's go to the usual news. Share what happened during the last 24 hours. General situation can be characterized by a good phrase that our general command is using. Had no success. So they were trying to move in the same area near Kharkov, minor motions near Dementivka. No success there. Near Izum, they tried to push back at Gusarovka and didn't quite work. Let's go south. Near Bakhmut, they did push a little closer for hundreds of yards, and in the area near Pokrovska towards Crossroads. Main efforts are still Zaitseva and Semigorya. You can see those two protrusions trying to sort of go around Bakhmut, and they threw Wagner in those places as well, hoping it will achieve something, anything. The real motion is not worthy of mention. It's basically several yards, several hundreds of yards in some places, and this is not really pushing Ukrainian troops back. They are approaching in the gray zone. They're just minimizing the distance between our combatants. And they did not take Avdiivka, Mariivka, and Peski. Yeah, we're still defending that. See at the bottom at 6. It is still too early to say. They're writing, and their publics that they took it. Yeah, the situation is changing daily or hourly. And in Marinka, that's in the south, the last red arrow on this map, around 6 or 7 o'clock, their official mentioning was that they captured a farm. And one explained to me, how do you go in half a year from we'll take Kiev in 3 days to we captured a farm near Marinka? I think that deserves 10 Heroes of Russia medals for that. And Zaporozhye, they are still doing some shuffling and trying things in one area towards Vuhledar, and they're concentrating groups near Tokmak. They overall have about 10 battalion technical groups in Zaporozhye. There is an opinion that on one hand they may be preparing an offensive in that area, or another view is that they're probably getting ready to set defensive positions with some counter-attacking capability. More to the south, near Kakhovka, they're getting a bit more. They're getting 15 battalion tactical groups. They added 2-3 additional battalion tactical groups to the right bank of Kherson. Armored infantry and some of the airborne troops. But it doesn't quite show to be a real offensive. It appears to be they're showing the activization, but it may be just a pretend play. So in the area of Kherson and towards Vysokopolye, are they still using artillery? Oh, yes, yes. Artillery, they're trying, they're shooting. That's their norm on the whole front, all 1,300 miles of the front line. So it's happening everywhere. Yeah, different intensiveness, but yes. For example, at Pisky, they have a concentration, and it's different. But otherwise, we also have other parts where from Novaya Kakhovka to Energodar, maybe there are 10 artillery units in that area, because that's a big body of water between us there, but they're still using them and shooting. Overall resume for the whole front. Active events are happening only in one area, from Siversk to Bakhmut. Recently, it was also Izum, and now they evaporated. They're probably counterattacking and defending themselves there, and we're waiting for Kherson area to come to life, and maybe something on Zaporozhye. Although I don't think that will happen, these are just my considerations. We'll see. Everything needs to be viewed in dynamics. This war started in 5 or 7 operational directions, and now they barely have one, and maybe if they do, they can add a second. That's the triumph of Putin's military. 264,000 watching us live, 64,000 clicks on like button. Please share links to the stream in your accounts and social media. Look, Olexiy, I have another review. I don't think it's... I think it's a foreign report. It's just translated into Russian. This is the general direction of attack of Russian forces in the south of Ukraine. This is not some insight, this is shared publicly, and we're trying to read into that. So on this map, they're showing directions of possible attacks from Kherson to Voznesensk, to Kryvyi Rog, and to Zaporozhye. Of course, Nikolaev is part of that zone. This is a 20-kilometer territory. How much powers do they have to actually engage in all these areas? Takmak on the right, Snegirovka and towards the middle, and Kherson in the left. So here one needs to ask a question not about forces, but about brains. Brains is not important in Russian troops. No, brains still are important, because one needs to have brains to fulfill this plan, or actually to attempt this plan, because the person who impressed Putin to follow this plan needs to get an Order of Hero of Ukraine, because if they attempt to advance on a quarter of these arrows that they're showing here, they'll be done, and their chances of going forward are nil. So does the Ukrainian military have enough troops to stop them? Yeah. Okay, I wanted to mention another thing, and maybe it's an artificial opinion. Perhaps maybe I think it is watched pretty high up in the Central Command or in Kremlin. Some people in the conversations and public media are trying to pin some responsibility for shelling certain positions of Ukrainian front, as if you and me are managing the fronts, and that we need to do our streams differently, so our conversations here are somehow the part of military planning over in Russia. Some people cannot really get that. They think it's all of our streams are as if we're leaking any insides or giving up military plans. I don't know how to convince them. Don't overemphasize the secrecy of information we are giving out here and our ability to affect things on the front. Besides our usual daily information function, we are not part of a military plan. We're not giving out any military secrets that could help one side or the other. Moreover, we both support Ukraine, so in its righteous fight and defending from occupants, everything else is the product of some people's active imagination. Did you run into that? Can you comment on it? Yeah, on our side we often have similar comments from a certain group that is very, if you dig deeper, is linked with a certain political force, that Arestovych and Feygin are making plans, and because of them, Russians are moving their troops. But at the same time, they're also saying that I'm useless. And now simple logic. If troops are being moved because of Arestovych, then Arestovych cannot be useless. So he is either useful to one side or to another, or to both at the same time if he can influence strategic relocations of troops. But these guys don't seem to follow any logic. You know, old Greeks thought that logic is part of human build and it's there by default, but they could not foresee that in the 21st century human logic can be replaced by the ideology of a certain party. This is basically a political propaganda that is in unison with Russian, or perhaps also exploitation of the complex of victim, where somebody else needs to be responsible. Somebody needs to be there to put the blame on because the person cannot put the blame on his actions, on himself. So it is basically what similar concept was in Amnesty International when they published the work and said Ukrainians are to blame, without any details or mentioning Russian side. So it's the same thing that Russian command and Russian military have nothing to do with the flow of war. It is Feygin and Arestovych that are causing all the harm and doing all the evil. So to discuss that seriously, I know that's we're not even trying to go deep down that rabbit hole. Just wanted to bring it up to our viewers that these stories and these informational pieces, they have a certain political fighting behind them, a certain political background, and a certain party pushing that. So when you see these things, please don't pull us in. This is not worth your effort. All right, let's go back to our themes. 275,000 watching us, almost 100,000 likes. Please continue clicking and sharing. Did you hear or not about 100,000 of North Korean samurais who are going to come to the front and cut Ukrainians and Ukrainian military? I don't know where is that coming from, because maybe they're sending them to eat because they're out of food. And there was some American publication that brought it up that North Korean army volunteers 100,000 of its troops to Moscow to transport them to the front, to bring them to Kherson. I think, Mark, they would give even 1 million as long as they don't need to feed them. Nobody cares about how they will fight. And I think they may be also thinking about sending them because then they will not have to feed them at all. But can you confirm that this thing may be happening? Well, let's imagine that they send 100,000 or 1 million of Korean volunteers. How do you think this news would be read in the United States, where people remember Korean War? where people still have Korean War in their memory. They could read it as, hooray, we have a chance to finish the Korean War. So then I think I'd expect 50,000 American volunteers, maybe with additional equipment, who will be very selectively attacking just Korean volunteers without hitting Russian troops. Would be happy with that. And if accidentally hit Russian troops during their attack as well, well, we thought there were Koreans, it's war. So another note to Moscow management, Moscow leadership, don't play with these things. Sometimes I cannot believe they're even discussing that. Oh, that's an American publication. Some journalist published it up. I think it's informational injection, probably sponsored by Korean leadership. Maybe a reaction to Pelosi's visit. They did announce that they're leaving the nuclear treaty. Oh yeah, they do it. They've done it like 100 times already. Every time they run out of potatoes, they start leaving different agreements to get a little bit food. All these shellings of Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, all these shenanigans with prisoners, North Korean volunteers. I said a few days ago, and I'll repeat it again. Every day likely will hear more weird informational news, information injects in the media field, because Moscow, that's what Moscow is doing. They are not pulling through the fight, and they're trying to do everything they can in their usual style. So look what's happening now, from Avdiivka to Marinka, in the Bakhmut area as well. That's the front they gave to so-called republics, DNR and LNR. They are killing themselves over the fortifications that were built over 8 years. As the result, maybe, just maybe, they'll advance by 5 kilometers, 8 kilometers somewhere, by killing themselves completely. So Moscow is getting rid of them entirely. But what for? Let's think it through. Why would you want to completely grind out and destroy your allies that you've built, propagandized, made their mind for war, and then threw them into the fray? Perhaps they are a problem to Moscow already. That may happen, that's usual. You know why? Because these guys will not accept a peace treaty with Ukraine. They're somewhat ideological. They're really brainwashed. And it appears that Moscow really wants to have less of brainwashed, less of those ideological fighters. And do you think it affects Moscow? Well, let's see, about 50,000 armed men who don't like Moscow's decision. That's always a problem. You think all those 50,000 are well motivated? Many of them are, yeah. If you take together DNR and LNR, probably less now after all the fighting, but still at least 30,000. And why are they making those special battalions in the subjects of Russia? Because those people who will probably or could probably start objecting and would join the resistance locally, they would make them join or force them to join regional battalions and throw them in the war to get rid of these people who possibly could cause harm or other things at home. So they don't need these people in Russia. They all need to die. That's the logic behind it. And they need to throw already everything they have like that and make sure everything gets eliminated near Pesky, near Avdiivka. I'm looking at the horrible attacks they're trying to do near Pesky. If you are taken and being thrown at the position that is impossible to capture without any support, or even if you capture that, they don't even resolve anything. It's not even tactical level, operative tactical level. No, it doesn't give you anything. Then you need to question what's the ideation behind that action. So one can read that perhaps they're telling you to take that cow farm and that house and maybe end yourself physically in the process of doing that. So one needs to see through these things. 306,000. We are live for about 20 minutes. I like the next topic. Collaborants, Ukrainians who switched sides and started to support Russian occupants, they keep dying. Some administrative, second head of administration of Novaya Kakhovka was brought to reanimation and died there. I understand he was shot. It was a pistol, PM. So first news was that he was shot. Second news came through that he died later in reanimation, and also the other piece of news coming out that that second guy who actually was poisoned, and Moscow confirmed poisoning, that he did taste something that he shouldn't have. So now he's on artificial lung ventilation. How do you foresee this activity unfolding? You think there'll be more things happening? And partisans will be active against collaborants? Partisans are just starting. There were a lot of questions about where are your glorious partisans. I want to say that to organize such a movement in Kherson area is not easy. Why? Because it takes time. People need to self-organize, to get contacts. They need to equip their area, make a proper hideouts with tools, weapons, and stuff. So blown up railroads in Zaporozhye, killed collaborants in Kherson. As Russian side was saying that somebody did attack the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. This is just the beginning. It'll be much worse soon. These are just individual things. One got shot, the other got shot, Russian FSB officers got shot, and now this is going to the systemic level, and people finally organized. They found ways and means to do that, and they're starting to work. And they're just reaching the good working level, to be more precise. So that resistance, that's part of the whole resistance movement, right? It is generally related with Kiev, right? This is difficult to say. You know, people from the bottom of their heart could take the gun and shoot the occupant. And you at least support them. Well, we thank them, we wave our hand, and we try to support them and provide weapons. Because if they do want any gun or explosive, it's not too difficult to purchase that from Russian military. Because they exchange that, they sell that. They need things, and there is a black market there. Oh, that's interesting. So that's happening in Donbass and Kherson. Well, Donbass is not a partisan area right now. There, they've been fighting for 8 years. Those were diversions. But in the freshly occupied territories, it's different. As little that I know about partisans, I want to say 90% of their equipment was purchased from the occupants themselves. All right, interesting. We're live 24 minutes. Let's talk about Erdogan's visit to Sochi, who had a 4-hour meeting there with Putin. They even brought Kadyrov. Erdogan refused to participate in the final press conference because he said he has business to tend to. From the notable results, no Bayraktars, and that was not even discussed, according to Peskov. That was we touched on that yesterday, and it basically came down to economic cooperation, getting to $100 billion trade turnover. It's significant for Erdogan. It could be natural gas, grain, anything that allows Turkey to not interfere with sanctions and also avoid sanctions and do not violate current limits on trade. But theoretically, not practically though, but theoretically, there's still an open position on the Russian side to peace talks with Zelensky. And in their understanding, peace talks is a compromise or capitulation. So they do want Ukraine to capitulate or sign a peace treaty in its current border. So how do you gauge Kiev firmness of a position of refusal for any negotiation with the occupant without withdrawal from the territory, or can that change? Or are there any circumstances that may cause you to negotiate? There are situations, circumstances that may change our position in negotiations. If they pack their bags and go back to the border of February 24th. This is a long-term solution that was confirmed on the highest level, and we're not changing it. We cannot forbid the president of Turkey to discuss that, but it does not affect our goals and plans. We would be, you know that phrase, we would be misunderstood here and looked at real badly over there. So, if we decide to sit down and start talking to Russia now, we'll never be able to explain to our people why did we decide to forego all of our captured territories. So, that's not an option. All right, next news that is just in the process of being born. We hear that alongside with the $1 billion support promised by Biden, that United States is also getting ready to supply ATACMS missiles for HIMARS that shoot as far as 300 kilometers. Do you think that may happen? Moscow was hysterical, so they'll be more hysterical not when they supply, but when we start hitting them. They'll be more hysterical, but I don't see any barriers to that. So look, the meeting of Zelensky with a group of congressmen preceded that news, and I think many of them are part of the Defense Committee. And it's probably as a result of some internal compromise within the American administration that they need to address certain things. Well, compromise is an interesting thing. Of course, they are discussing. What these discussions come down to. If you want Ukraine to win, ATACMS are important because you cannot win in the war where the enemy is hitting you from 500 kilometers and you cannot even reach 300. So at the bare minimum, it needs to be leveled. You don't even need to try to be better than Russians. You just need to somewhat level it with them. And the next question is, do you want Ukraine to win? And then if you do, then everything is logical. It does take time. All these discussions take time. Understandable. But it started back in the day, remember? They did not want to even give us stingers. And now we have HIMARS working, UAVs working, 155mm artillery is working. 1 billion, that's a lot of funding for equipment. So ATACMS is just the next step. Everything seems to be logical. All right, let's touch again on the question of recognizing Russia as the sponsor of terrorism. We went through the phase where American government said, in the face of Blinken, said we're not ready to do that because it will create undesired consequences. Did you see that picture? Because Pelosi, I think, is playing some tune there. Did you see her picture back in 1960 something? Do you think it was Pelosi on that picture? Yeah, I think it was. But yeah, there was a good article with that alongside saying that if a woman bought a swimsuit and booked a hotel in Thailand, nothing will stop her. No, that's funny. All right. So I hear that there is enough support on her party side to push for that decision of acknowledgement to Russia as a sponsor of terrorism as a country. So that decision may come through in the American legislature. I hear Russia may be really upset, and they're immediately starting some screams that they will stop any political relations with the United States. But now it appears that it does go in that direction, because all these flashes about visa limitations to the countries of Baltic states, it does appear to be first testing stones in that direction, about general blocking visa regimes for Russians altogether. And I want to also say that some countries are already taking these decisions on local levels, that Russia is a terrorist state. But we understand that the main decision in the world arena would be taken by United States, because if they do make that, if they do accept that stance, then it will have a far-going consequences. Well, we understand why they are not in a hurry to recognize that. Why? Because India and China are buying Russian energy fueled by India and China. And making such a conclusion upon Russia is tightening your relations with China and India. And this is a very tectonic step. The consequences of this will be tectonic in the world. Because while understanding that Russia is a terrorist state under Putin right now, nobody is even questioning that. What is preventing them from formalizing that is that some of the allies or other countries are not ready to completely withdraw from Russian energy sources. So here are some people telling me in the chat, that some ladies, that quote about the swimsuit is correct if the swimsuit is new. So tectonic consequences, they're big things to address, yes. And the United States was not afraid to call upon China, which could provoke them to war. And the other one is economic consequences, which one needs to gauge, debit, credit. So they're comparing the pros and cons. When a situation will become more pro that, they'll take that decision. If you try to zoom out of it, the whole conflict, the whole story is escalating. So tell me which of the steps the West did not make when people were saying they will not do that, they will not do this. Remember, there were no Stingers, now we have HIMARS. Remember, we'll never give anti-air defense. Aviation, never. Now, Ukrainian fighters are learning Western machines. And these machines will be here and they will start working on the front. You know, what is it to give F-16? This is a much tougher thing than attack a missile. And if we're training for that, this is the open sources talking about that, that we are training and they will be given. So F-16 with the right weaponry is worth at least 10 attack missiles. So everything is very logical. It's just the West goes step by step and perhaps doesn't make these steps too fast. So the same thing here with Russia as a terrorist state. When they understand that the general pro outweighs the cons, that decision will be made. Because nobody is really questioning that Russia is involved in terrorist activity on a global scale right now. And they'll be pushing it with visa tools, with other things. So they're calculating, essentially. If we do this, these are the consequences. Do we need them now? Perhaps not. Maybe in November we could start doing that, and by January it will be all right. So this is just me hypothesizing, but that's a rough line of thinking. The guys like calculating things, and that's the core of the West, rationality. When rationality supports certain decisions, they make them. They don't fret. All right, almost 350,000 watching us. We've been live for over 30 minutes. How are we tomorrow? Tomorrow? No, tomorrow is a day off. And here I got more messages from ladies, Olexiy and Mark. Where are the aprons? I know they should be in European and American store. What about Ukrainian? I'll need to double check. I think they were, but I'll verify. They're asking for aprons and bags. Maybe even, the simplest, totes. I see Kostya, my tech support, confirming that we should have them. I can confirm that we have 300,000 hryvnias accumulated, what we have from the store. How much is it? Is it 71,000 is about 2,000 euros, so we can support at least 3 cases, 3 stories. So Kostya translated that, said we got $8,000 roughly. Okay, so starting next week, let's look up for new families. Find somebody from Kharkov, from Nikopol, from Nikolaev. At least symbolically help the cities that are being shelled, especially if there are kids or women involved. Yep. Arms, legs. Let's support Kharkov, Nikolaev, Nikopol citizens, especially if you know that there are children who suffered the consequences of Russian attacks. Let's help little kids. So on Monday we're starting the usual time at 10, right? Next week will be broken. Heads up, it'll be a difficult week. I'm looking at my schedule, but we'll try. Monday we're meeting for sure, right? Yes, Monday is there. All right, we have an opportunity to show another thing before we leave. So we use Twitter. To understand what Kherson propagandists are doing. Some Russian radio, Komsomol Pravda. There are a ton of those propagandists there. Nobody knows that face, but I'm seeing if we can connect audio to that video for the stream. You can read the subtitles, but basically we're running out of time. So there, that prick from Komsomol Pravda, we took it from Navalny's team Twitter, from their Twitter account. They shared it. So that guy is suggesting to execute teachers on the south of Kherson, to execute families for refusal to come to schools and study in the Russian program and teach new anti-Ukrainian programs there. Watch it. That's a curious piece of what's going on in Russia. Okay, then till Monday. We'll continue our conversation on Monday. Thank you to those 350,000 who came to see us today on Saturday. Just take some rest over the weekend and don't miss us on Monday. Yeah, I actually think there'll be interesting events on Monday unfolding. So come, see you then. Goodbye.